The 2:07 a.m. Truth. The call that rebuilt a titan. Welcome back to our channel. If you believe that true love can overcome the biggest mistakes, hit that like button and subscribe now. This is the story of a CEO who thought he had everything, only to find his world split open by a tiny life. The silence shattered. 2:07 a.m. A phone call can cleave a man's life in two. In the cold darkness of a penthouse overlooking the Charles River, the ringtone sliced through the silence like a razor. No number. He almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. Then some raw instinct, drove his thumb across the screen. "Thorne!" His voice was hoarse, clipped, leaving no room for breathlessness. "I apologize for calling so late." A woman's voice came through, professional, urgent yet warm. "I'm the charge nurse at Boston General Hospital. Are you Ethan Thorne?" "Yes, what is going on?" A silence followed, thin as a thread, but it lodged right between his ribs. "Patient Ava Sterling has just been brought to the emergency room. She went into premature labor. 31 weeks. You are listed as the emergency contact." Ava. The name hit him like a shard of ice. Every sound around him dimmed. The wind scraping the glass, the hum of the air filter, the pulse in his ears. 8 months ago, they had torn each other apart, with words sharper than a scalpel, and hadn't spoken since. "Her condition?" Ethan asked. His voice was flat, neither high nor low, just an unbroken line on a heart monitor. "She's stable for now, but the baby is in the NICU. Doctors need a guardian signature immediately and request the father's presence for emergency testing right now." The word father cracked through the room like a fault line, splitting the wall Ethan had built with meetings, road shows, and deals he always won. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. The drive to redemption. The Boston rain fell like silver dust. Night lights smeared across the wet asphalt. Ethan drove by instinct. The same hands that once drew up multi-billion-dollar charts now gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles were white. He didn't turn on music. He didn't call his assistant. He didn't think about the 9 a.m. board meeting. His mind held only fragments. Ava's laughter under a cafe awning, her hand warm on a wind-swept bridge. And that final night when she said, "I can't live inside a schedule where my heart has no space anymore." He had countered with the most dangerous weapon he knew. Silence. The hospital lobby gleamed like a future terminal. The air smelled of antiseptic, so clean it felt sterile, emotionless. Ding. The elevator doors slid open. NICU floor. Every sound was reduced to a whisper, as if the whole world was holding its breath, waiting for tiny lungs to remember how to breathe. "Mr. Thorne." A nurse in green scrubs hurried toward him. Her badge read, "Camilla." "Please follow me. Ava is in recovery. The baby is in NICU 3. Before entering, you'll need to scrub and put on a gown." Ethan nodded and followed, obedient as a schoolboy. Warm water slid between his fingers. The disinfectant stung slightly. "Father." The word pulsed unevenly inside his head. The hallway shone like crystal. Behind the paneled window were rows of incubators, small exploration capsules, each housing its own fragile sky. NICU 3. It slid open, and time simply stopped. The baby was so small, skin pink and thin as paper, veins like threads beneath. Her chest rose and fell, with a rhythm so delicate, Ethan feared his own breath might unbalance it. A tiny oxygen tube, sensor wires, the soft beep of machines, like the city whispering after midnight. Camilla's voice dropped to a whisper. "It's a girl, 1.7 kilos. We're calling her Baby Heart for now. Doctors need to confirm paternity for possible transfusion protocol and genetic screening. I'm sure you understand." He understood. He always understood procedures. That's how he had survived. But in this moment, Every protocol dissolved like water. His eyes couldn't leave that small face behind the glass, eyelashes fine as freshly written exclamation marks on life. "Where is she?" Ethan's voice barely existed. "Recovery. Upstairs." She woke for a few minutes, then fell asleep again. "Before she did, she asked me to tell you." Camilla hesitated. "She said you don't have to feel obligated. She can handle this alone." A dull blade twisted inside his chest. "I'll sign whatever needs signing." Camilla handed him a stack of papers. Consent for treatment, HIPAA, acknowledgement of paternity pending test. Familiar lettering, suddenly heavy as lead. Ethan signed, his pen strokes firm, only trembling at the end. "Thank you," Camilla said. "This will speed things up immensely." "And the name?" Ethan paused, surprised at the ease with which the word baby had slipped from her mouth. "She mentioned a name." Camilla smiled softly. "Iris," she whispered between contractions. "Iris, the flower that blooms through the frost." Ethan placed his palm against the glass, not touching, but almost. "Hello, Iris. What would you have done if you were Ava, having kept this secret for months? Would you have called him, or tried to handle it alone? Share your thoughts." The tense reunion. The recovery room was dim and warm. The monitor emitted an irregular beep, like raindrops hitting a distant tin roof, a rhythm that pulled at some buried memory. Ava lay on her side, hair damp with sweat, lips dry. Skin paler than usual. Even exhausted, she made the room feel less cold. The same quiet light Ethan had once sought without knowing it. He stood at the foot of the bed, suddenly clumsy to the point of absurdity. A man who could command a hall of 500 investors with 4 slides now didn't know where to put his hands. What to say first? Ava's eyes opened. The first glance was unfocused. The second found him. There was no surprise there. As if deep down she had always known he would come. "I didn't call you," she whispered, her voice rough. "Camilla did." "I know." Ethan pulled a chair close, trying to sound calm, while a storm roared beneath the surface. "I just came from the NICU. I signed everything." A moment floated between them, thin as smoke, fragile enough to disappear if either breathed too hard. Ava stared at the ceiling, inhaling slowly. "I'm not here to tether your life to anything. Not anymore." "You're not tethering me," Ethan said, startled by the softness of his own tone. "I tethered myself." A faint smile touched her lips. "I meant to tell you, but that night, everything fell apart. I was scared, and I thought, you didn't want a family." The words hit like hail. He remembered every time he had deflected the question, every excuse, not the right time, next quarter after the launch. He had never said no, but he hadn't said yes either. That silence she had filled with her own. "Ava." Ethan swallowed, his throat tight. "I never knew how to say yes, when it wasn't on my schedule." "Do I know you?" She closed her eyes, her voice soft. "And I once loved that about you. How you could organize the universe into boxes, until I realized some things can't be scheduled." The door opened softly. Dr. Anika Patel, hair neatly pulled back, eyes tired, but bright. "Good evening to you both. I'm supervising the NICU tonight. The good news? Iris is responding well to the ventilator. Her blood gases are stable. However, we'll need a blood sample from the father to prepare for a potential transfusion, should her hematocrit levels fluctuate. We'll also run some genetic screening related to common respiratory and metabolic issues in preemies." Ethan straightened instantly, as if his name had been called. "That's me." "Good." Dr. Patel nodded. "You'll go with the nurse for the draw. Basic results will take about 60 minutes. As for Mom, get some more rest. Your baby is fighting very hard." Ethan turned back to the bed. His hand rested on the bed rail, not touching Ava. but close enough that the distance between them seemed to shrink. "I'm here. I know." Ava looked up at him, exhausted, but calm. "Don't walk out in the middle of surgery, Mr. CEO." A ghost of her old smile flickered, bending the sterile hospital light into something human. Camilla peered around the door, holding a small tray. "Ready, Iris's dad?" The word dad lit up the room, as if someone had just drawn the curtains on dawn. Ethan took a deep breath and nodded. For more heart-stopping drama, be sure to hit that notification bell. You won't believe the next crisis that hits the NICU. The 60-minute wait. The hallway stretched long like a runway. The needle pricked. Cold. Outside the small window, the rain traced thin silver lines like the pulse on a monitor screen. His phone vibrated. 9 a.m. Q2 guidance. He silenced it. The nurse withdrew the needle, placed a cotton pad, taped it down. "All done," she said softly. "You did great." Ethan nodded, relearning the simplest human actions. Inhale. Exhale. Wait. At the end of the hall, another father held a tiny knit sweater to his chest, eyes red. They met glances for a second. Wordless. Only understanding. Ethan headed back toward NICU 3. Camilla hurried to meet him, eyes wide. "Dr. Patel needs you now. The baby's SpO2 is dropping fast. We need a decision on surfactant and ventilator adjustments, and we might need to transfuse immediately." Time folded. The world shrank to one door and one struggling heartbeat fighting to stay. Ethan surged forward, his pulse thundering so loud the ceiling light seemed to flicker with it. Inside, the monitors shrieked, "Beep! Beep! Beep!" The universe's own alarm. "Mr. Thorne." Dr. Patel looked up, stern but urgent. "Blood type matches. We have your consent to proceed under protocol. I need your signature here, and I need you to stand by your daughter." Ethan grabbed the pen. Ink hit the page just as the SpO2 number plunged, tightening every breath in the room. He signed, then pressed his palm against the side of the incubator and whispered through the glass. "Sweetheart, Daddy's here. Don't go anywhere." 1 beat. 2 beats. The blue line trembled. Then it rose. Dr. Patel exhaled softly. "O2 is climbing. Hold steady for 10 more minutes." Ethan stood motionless, his palms slick with sweat. The baby inside that glass box was impossibly small, yet her strength was greater than any deal he had ever closed. Outside the NICU, Dr. Patel lowered her mask and spoke softly. "Premature babies have underdeveloped lungs. We gave her surfactant to reduce alveolar tension. The next 48 hours are critical." Ethan clenched his fists to steady himself. "I'll run every test you need, whatever it takes." Dr. Patel nodded slowly. "Money helps with some things, not with others. But tonight, Iris has the greatest advantage of all. Her father is here." The words cut deeper than any scalpel. He returned to the recovery room. Ava had just opened her eyes. The faint gray of a Boston dawn spread across her pale, tired face. On the chair beside her, Ethan's hospital gown still had a small patch of medical tape. "Still here?" Ava asked softly. "Wouldn't dare leave," Ethan said with a tired smile, dark circles under his eyes. "Iris still needs my signature on a few things." Ava let out a quiet, shaken laugh, the first in all these hours. "Still you? Nothing feels safe until you've signed it off." The Ice Queen arrives before Ethan could respond. The sharp rhythm of heels echoed down the quiet hallway. He turned. Eleanor Thorne, gray cashmere coat, impeccable bun. Cold, calculating eyes walked directly toward them. "Ethan." Her voice was low, but it sounded like a command. "Are you truly here because of her?" Ava froze in the doorway. Color drained from her face, the IV mark still visible on her hand. Ethan immediately stepped between them. "Mother, you shouldn't be here." The hospital corridor suddenly went cold, as if the power had gone out. Ethan stood tall, his gaze unshakable. Eleanor Thorne, the woman who could silence a 20-investor boardroom with a single raised eyebrow, stared him down, her steel-gray eyes shining with the same power he had memorized since childhood. "Shouldn't I be here?" she repeated, her voice low, dry, and laced with implication. "Son, I heard you walked out of the Investors Summit, abandoned your private jet, and flew to Boston in the middle of the night. And all this for that woman?" Her eyes flicked to Ava, cold as a blade. "Sterling Hart is still talented at causing trouble, I see." Ava was pale, weak, but her voice did not waver. "I'm only trying to keep my daughter alive. If that's what you call trouble, so be it." A heavy silence. Then Ethan spoke, his tone firm and final, like signing a contract. "Enough, Mother. Our daughter is in intensive care. You have no right to turn this place into a battleground." Eleanor froze. What did you just say?" Ethan held her gaze. "Iris is my daughter, no one else's." Everything stopped. The monitors inside the NICU kept their steady beep, beep, but in the hallway, the world held its breath. Eleanor's mouth opened, then snapped shut again. When she finally spoke, her voice was off-key, shaky. "Are you saying that child is—" "My daughter," Ethan said softly. "No one else's." The color drained from her face, shock, and something close to fear mixing beneath her composure. "Do you realize what you're doing, Ethan? A preemie baby, a woman who disappeared without explanation. You're willing to risk the reputation of the entire Thornpour group for the truth," Ethan cut in, his voice low but cutting. "For the fact that you made Ava believe I went back to Claire." The words dropped to the floor like broken glass. Eleanor's eyes wavered. "I did it for your future," she snapped, her voice trembling, but her authority intact. "You don't understand, Ethan. People watch your every move. A relationship like this—" "Like what, Mother?" Ethan took a step forward, his tone controlled, but every word reverberating off the walls. "A woman who doesn't fit your pedigree? A love that doesn't show up in your investment portfolio?" Ava remained silent, clutching her hospital gown tightly. She wanted to speak, but Dr. Patel appeared just then, her quiet presence cutting through the tension. "Excuse me," the doctor said softly, "but I need the hallway to remain quiet. The patient needs rest." Eleanor adjusted her coat, her expression cooling another degree. "We will speak later, Ethan, about the consequences of this decision." Her heels clicked sharply against the tile as she strode away, leaving behind the faint scent of perfume, elegant and cold as crystal. Ava watched her go, her eyes tired but deep. "I didn't mean to anger your mother," she murmured. "It's all right," Ethan said softly, but his tone held steel. "Every storm runs out of rain eventually." He sat beside her, silent for a few moments before continuing. "I used to think strength meant not needing anyone. Now I know. It was just a way to hide from what I was afraid of." Ava turned toward him, a slight curve to her lips. "And now?" Ethan exhaled, his voice barely a whisper. "Now I fear only one thing, losing someone I love all over again." The words silenced her. For a moment, Ava didn't see the CEO who commanded rooms and markets, but the man who once waited for her in the rain outside a cafe. No titles, no walls, just someone finally learning to speak from the heart. If you're rooting for Ethan and Ava to make it, give this video a like. The first rainbow later. Dr. Patel returned, a chart in hand. "I have good news," she said softly. "The compatibility tests are perfect. No dangerous mutations. The baby's chances for recovery are very high." Ava leaned against her pillow, tears silently slipping down her cheeks. Ethan reached for her hand, for the first time in 8 months, and squeezed gently. "You hear that?" he whispered. "Our daughter is going to be fine." Ava nodded to trembling. "Thank you for coming." Ethan smiled. His gaze softened. "If I hadn't come, I would never forgive myself." They sat in silence, the only sound the steady rhythm of the monitor beside her. Outside the glass, the Boston rain had stopped. Drops clung to the window, trapping the pale gold of the setting sun, as if someone had painted a faint rainbow across the pane. Night. The hospital corridors grew still. Ethan sat alone by the coffee machine, a steaming paper cup between his hands, knuckles scraped. The price of a long night. Ah, the sound of heels clicked again, but this time it wasn't Eleanor. Camilla approached with a smile. "Good news. Baby Iris is stable. We've reduced the vent pressure. She's responding wonderfully." Ethan stood instantly. "Thank you. Thank Iris's dad," Camilla quipped, half joking, half sincere. "Not everyone stays the whole night." He smiled, one of those rare, real smiles. "I guess I'm learning how to." "Then congratulations," she said, and left, leaving him in a silence that finally felt peaceful. Ethan looked at his cup. Then he muttered softly, "Daddy's here, sweetheart." Family's first steps. The next morning, the first sunlight streamed through the window. Ava woke to find Ethan still there, sitting in the same chair, the hospital gown draped over his shoulders, dark circles under his eyes. "You didn't go home?" Ava said, half smiling, half serious. "Still needs me to sign a few more things." Ava laughed faintly. "Still you. Nothing feels settled until there's a signature." They both laughed softly, like breathing, but the calm didn't last long. The door opened. Eleanor walked in, not a storm this time, but still carrying a chill. In her hand was a photograph. Ava recognized it instantly, the old newspaper clipping from 8 months ago. Ethan standing next to a socialite named Claire at a charity gala, the camera flash capturing their perfect smiles. "This," Eleanor said softly, "is why she left, and why you can't entirely blame me." Ethan stood. "Mother." "No," she interrupted, her voice firm. "You will listen." Ava took a deep breath. "You don't need to protect your son anymore. I left because of him." Ethan turned, surprised. "Ava?" "Yes," she continued, her eyes locked on his. "You stayed silent, when all I needed was one sentence. I'm here. You looked at your phone. I was carrying our child, and I couldn't bring myself to tell you." The air grew heavy. Eleanor looked between them. Her gaze softened for the first time. "I may have been wrong," she said slowly, each word sounding like it was pulled from an old wound. "But now you must do what's right." Ethan nodded. "I am doing it, right here, with them." Eleanor's eyes glistened, wet for the first time in years. "The baby is well?" Ava smiled faintly, her voice shaky. "She's stronger than both of us." Eleanor nodded, then turned silently and left. No trace of perfume this time, just the sound of her tassels fading down the corridor. Sunset in Boston. In the NICU, the golden light of dusk filtered through the glass, touching Iris's tiny face. Ethan and Ava stood side by side in silence. "You see that?" Ava whispered. "She moved." Ethan pressed his hand against the glass, his voice deep and soft. "She is stronger than both of us." Ava turned to look at him. In his tired eyes, something shifted. Not quite forgiveness, but the first small crack in the wall between them. "I promise," he said softly, "no matter what, I'll be here. For her. For you." Outside, the rain had reduced to mist. A single beam of light sliced through the clouds like the first rainbow of dawn. Final CTA. If you want to see what happens to the Thornpour group now, share this story and subscribe for the sequel, The Unscheduled Life. 2 days later, the first cry. A beautiful, sharp sound cut through the NICU silence. Iris's first cry. Dr. Patel looked up, smiling. "She's breathing on her own. We can take the tube out." Ava broke into tears. Ethan held her, for the first time in 8 months. Wordless. Only warmth. Camilla gently lifted the baby and placed her on Ava's chest. Soft skin. A tiny heartbeat against her mother's. Ethan stood beside them, his eyes shining red. Dr. Patel smiled, her voice barely a whisper. This little one is a fighter. Ava turned to Ethan, trembling. Did you hear that? Your daughter is a warrior. Ethan leaned down and pressed a kiss on the baby's forehead, and her father said softly, I'll be her guard. 2 weeks later, Iris was finally moved out of the NICU. No more breathing tubes, no more urgent beeps. Just the soft, steady rhythm of a small soul learning to live. First morning. The recovery room was bathed in warm sunlight. Ava leaned back against the pillows, cradling her daughter in her arms. Ethan stood in the doorway, clutching a bottle of formula, looking comically tense. Ava raised an eyebrow. You followed the instructions, right? 60 milliliters of water, 2 scoops of formula. Shake clockwise for 45 seconds, he recited, voice serious, as if briefing an investor board. Ava laughed, a real laugh, for the first time in what felt like forever. No fear, no tears. You really don't do anything halfway, do you? Ethan walked over, handing her the bottle. They both looked at Iris, her small eyes half open, glistening like bits of glass. Hello, little rainbow, he whispered. Iris stirred. Her tiny fingers wrapped around his index finger. In that instant, time stood still. A man who once controlled the world realized everything he had ever needed fit perfectly into the palm of a newborn's hand. A month later, discharge day. High above, the Boston sun shone brightly, as if trying to make up for all the days of rain. Ethan carried Iris, who giggled and gripped his hair. Ava stood beside him, her head resting against his shoulder. Together, they crossed the hospital doors, into the flood of light, into a new chapter. The park by the Charles River shimmered under the afternoon sun. Ava sat on a wooden bench, petals drifting around her in the breeze. I used to be terrified of having to raise her alone, Ava murmured, but watching you now, I think Iris brought her father home. Ethan smiled, his gaze steady and full. Maybe she is the biggest deal I'll ever make, he said softly. And the first one I don't want to win. Just keep. Ava laughed, tilting her head. You really know how to make people believe in miracles. It's not a miracle, he said, voice low. It's just that this time, I'm not letting go of what is real. 10 months later. The Thorne home. Winter blanketed New York in white. Eleanor sat on the rug, trying to stack colorful blocks with Iris, while Ethan held a video camera, capturing every second. From the kitchen, Ava appeared with a tray of fresh-baked cookies. Careful, Mom, she teased. She's about to throw that block right into your hair. Eleanor laughed, a clear, genuine laugh, so bright, Ethan almost dropped the camera. Well then, she said, smiling. Let her try. The room filled with laughter, the sound of 3 generations blending into the melody of a life that was just beginning again. Ethan stopped recording and walked to Ava. You know what day it is? He asked. The day you forgot to buy flowers again? She quipped. He shook his head and pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside was the ring he had kept hidden in a drawer for 8 long months. This time, he said softly, there is no one between us. No plans, no fear. Just me, you, and Iris. Ava looked at him, tears glistening as her smile grew. Are you sure? I've never been surer of anything. Eleanor stood, lifting Iris gently into her arms. She should witness this, she whispered. Ethan knelt and took Ava's hand. No storms, no distance, just a family finding its way back to itself. The golden light in the room flickered softly, spilling across the wood floor like 1,000 small stars. 1 year later. Thorne Innovations. Among financial models and quarterly reports, a single framed photo sat next to Ethan's computer. Ava holding Iris beneath a real rainbow after the rain. Beneath it, in Ava's slanted blue ink, was a handwritten note. Sometimes, what brings us back to life isn't success, but the first breath of someone we never knew we were waiting for. Ethan leaned back in his chair and smiled. Outside the window, the Boston rain began to fall. Again, every drop catching the faint reflection of a rainbow in the distance. But this time, it didn't feel sad, because he knew that after every storm, the rainbow always returns. And Iris was his rainbow. Not every midnight phone call marks an end. Some are the beginning of a family. The unscheduled CEO, a titan's struggle. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you believe in profound change. This section shows how a CEO transforms when faced with life's biggest disruption. Undercurrents at Thornpour Innovations. A month after Iris was discharged, Ethan's life in the suburbs outside of New York City was a tug-of-war between two worlds. The sweet, unscripted chaos of home and the aggressive, unyielding ferocity of Wall Street. Ethan's shift was impossible to conceal. He still ran Thornpour Innovations, but early meetings now had to start at 8:30 a.m. instead of 7 a.m., and he was adamant about leaving the office by 5:30 p.m., an unprecedented act. The reaction from the board and investors was anything but subtle. "Thorne, we understand your family circumstances," said Marcus Lyle, the chairman of the board and a Wall Street hardliner, during a private video conference. "But Thornpour is negotiating a $12 billion merger. We need you to be all in." Ethan looked into the screen, his gaze calm and unwavering, a look opponents had learned to fear. "Marcus, I just filed Q1 earnings 15% above projection. I haven't missed a deadline. Everything is being handled." "Handled by not answering emails at 10 p.m. and canceling a trip to Dubai?" Marcus countered, his voice dripping with skepticism. "This is a compromise, Ethan. And compromise in business is a sign of weakness." Ethan sighed, not out of annoyance, but out of the sheer fatigue of having to explain a new truth. "Weakness is when you lose sight of what you're fighting for. I nearly lost my family, Marcus. I know where the real value lies now. If you doubt my ability, look at the numbers. If you're still unsatisfied, we will talk." The call ended, but the tension lingered. Ethan knew that in the unforgiving world of high finance, his newfound commitment to his personal life was viewed as a dangerous liability. He had always thrived on control, yet here he was, suddenly the most unpredictable element in his own company. "Do you think the board has a right to demand the old 24/7 Ethan back, or should they respect his new boundaries as long as the results are good?" Let us know in the comments. The unlikely ally. Eleanor's pivot, meanwhile, the dynamic at home with Ava and Iris, was a daily lesson in humility. Ethan, the master strategist, struggled with the simplest tasks. He couldn't decipher which cry meant hungry and which meant tired. He was lost in the chaos of bottles and diaper changes. His savior, unexpectedly, arrived in the form of his mother, Eleanor Thorne. Eleanor had started visiting once a week, but after seeing Ethan fumble awkwardly with a baby carrier, her visits became twice a week, then 3 times. The formidable matriarch who had once demanded pedigree and order now found solace in the simple, unscheduled rhythm of her granddaughter's life. One afternoon, Eleanor found Ethan looking utterly defeated, covered in baby formula after a disastrous attempt at feeding. "You look like you just lost the $12 billion merger," Eleanor said, not with scorn, but a hint of wry amusement. "Worse," Ethan muttered, wiping his tie. "I lost a bottle to gravity. I can't do this, Mother. I can navigate complex derivatives, but I can't figure out a 4-ounce feeding schedule." Eleanor, without a word, took a cloth and began calmly cleaning the mess. "You have the mind for complex derivatives, Because they are logical, Ethan. A baby is pure emotion. She doesn't follow a ledger. She needs to be felt. She looked at him, her gray eyes soft. I forced logic on you because I was afraid of the emotions I couldn't control after your father died. That was my mistake. I was protecting you from feeling, and now you don't know how to translate the language of love. That night, Eleanor stayed late. She taught Ethan simple things: how to listen to the different pitches of Iris's cry, how to wrap her tightly in a swaddle, and, most importantly, how to be present without trying to fix or control. She also built an unexpected bridge with Ava. I owe you an apology, Ava, Eleanor said one day, standing by the crib. Not just for the past, but for how I judged you. You saw the man my son could be, long before I did. Thank you for not giving up on him. Ava, who had always braced herself for Eleanor's coldness, was disarmed. I never saw a CEO, Eleanor. I just saw Ethan. He was the one who almost gave up on himself. The Ice Queen was melting. Eleanor, using her formidable organizational skills, did something truly revolutionary. She created a grandmother schedule. She now came every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, allowing Ethan to attend critical late-day meetings and giving Ava, who was starting her own small art consultancy, time to work. The merger crisis. The fragile balance was shattered 6 weeks later. The $12 billion merger with Global Financial Holdings, GFFH, hit a catastrophic snag. GFH demanded a last-minute, non-negotiable term change that would expose Thornpour to an unacceptable level of risk. Julian immediately saw it as a hostile takeover disguised as a merger. The GFH CEO, Victor Sterling, no relation to Ava, demanded Ethan fly immediately to London for a weekend of continuous negotiation. Ethan was stuck. It was Friday afternoon. He was due to leave for a family weekend trip to the coast, their first since Iris's birth. He called Marcus Lyle. The deal is dead if we accept their new terms. They are trying to bleed us dry. Marcus was furious. Then you need to get on a plane right now, Ethan, and talk them down. That's what you're paid to do. Ethan hung up. He knew this wasn't just about business. It was about the old world challenging his new one. If he went, he confirmed Marcus's belief that his family was ultimately secondary. If he didn't, he risked the company and the livelihoods of thousands of employees. He walked into the living room where Ava was packing a diaper bag and told her about the crisis. Ava listened, her expression calm. So the old Ethan would be on a plane by now. The old Ethan would be on the plane, and he would come back successful but broken, Ethan admitted, rubbing the tension from his temples. I can't leave you and Iris now, not when she just learned to recognize my voice. Ava walked up to him, placing a hand on his cheek. And the new Ethan, what does he do? Ethan looked at the packed bag, then at her eyes. He had the answer. The new Ethan doesn't let a bully dictate his schedule or his strategy. We don't need the plane. He returned to his home office, a fierce resolve burning in his eyes. He didn't need to be in London to negotiate. He needed to be smarter than London. He spent the next 3 hours not arguing with GFH, but quietly calling his network, the forgotten contacts, the analysts who owed him favors. He used his deep, intimate knowledge of GFH structure, a knowledge he had gathered over years of 24/7 work, and found the soft underbelly of their new proposal. By Saturday morning, when Victor Sterling woke up in London, his inbox contained not a counteroffer, but a single, devastatingly precise document from Ethan. It was a projection showing how GFH's revised terms would actually trigger a massive regulatory audit under U.S. banking laws, an audit that would cripple them far worse than the merger falling through. Victor Sterling called back at 7 a.m. New York time. He wasn't aggressive, he was defeated. Thorne, you've always been ruthless, but this is calculated. It's not ruthless, Victor, Ethan said, his voice quiet. It's protection. The deal stands on the original terms, or it dies. Your choice. I have to go now. My daughter needs her morning bottle." He hung up, closed the deal, and walked out to the living room, just as Iris started her "I'm hungry" cry. Outcome: the merger went through on Thornpore's original safe terms. Marcus Lyle was speechless. Ethan had proven that his new, balanced schedule did not create weakness. It created clarity and unpredictability, making him a more formidable opponent than ever before. The unscheduled proposal. Revisited. Later that weekend, they were walking along the misty coast, Iris bundled in her stroller. "You risked it all for us," Ava whispered, looking out at the choppy Atlantic. "I risked a bad deal," Ethan corrected, smiling. "I kept the good one." He stopped, knelt beside the stroller, and gently took Ava's hand. He didn't have the velvet box with him this time. The moment was too unplanned for that. "Ava Sterling," he said, looking straight into her eyes. "You asked me once if I was sure. I am. I love you. I love Iris. This life, the one I didn't schedule, is the only one I want. Marry me." Ava's eyes filled with tears, but her smile was wide and real. "Yes, Ethan Thorne. 1,000,000 times yes." He stood and pulled her close, kissing her deeply. The salty air and the cold mist, no match for the sudden, fierce warmth between them. A few months later, at their small, beautiful wedding ceremony in the garden, Eleanor raised her glass. Her eyes, glistening with pride, met Ethan's. "To my son," she toasted, her voice clear and strong. "He was the smartest man in the room, but now he is the wisest. He learned that the only contract that truly matters is the one written on the heart. To Ethan and Ava, and to the unscheduled miracle, Iris, the love story is just beginning." What kind of challenges do you think Ava and Ethan will face next as they navigate parenting, marriage, and the ruthless world of finance? Let us know your predictions. Part 3. The Unshakable Contract. The Irrevocable Deal. Get ready for the confrontation we've all been waiting for. Hit the notification bell. This part brings back a ghost from Ethan's past, threatening their newfound peace. Ava's ascendancy. A year after their wedding, Ava was not just Iris's mother, but a successful entrepreneur. She had officially launched Sterling Art Consultancy, focusing on curating contemporary and historical art collections. With her talent and network in the art world, her firm was quickly gaining traction. Ethan had learned not only to support, but to respect Ava's workspace. He never funded her company with Thornpore money. Instead, he used his network to connect her with potential clients whom he trusted would appreciate her discerning eye. Their relationship was built on trust and a new principle. Never let the schedule control life. They had a fixed wind-down hour at 4:30 p.m. every day, regardless of workload, time strictly reserved for Iris. Even the dynamic between Ava and Eleanor Thorne had transitioned from frosty to cautious allies. Eleanor, now grandmother, was the most reliable babysitter and frequently offered sharp advice, not on finance, but on how to stand firm on personal value. "If a client wastes your time, cut them, Ava," Eleanor advised while playing blocks with Iris. "Your value is not their money, but the scarcity of your time." A ghost from the past. Claire returns. Everything ran smoothly until a crisp autumn morning when a familiar name appeared in Ethan's email, causing a momentary jolt. Claire D'Angelo. Claire, the socialite PR executive whom Ethan had been rumored to be involved with during his separation from Ava, was a senior PR professional in the arts and charity sector. Ethan had always denied a relationship with Claire, but it was the rumors and his ensuing silence that had led Ava to believe Ethan had gone back to Claire, one of the triggers for Ava leaving. Claire's email was professional, but there was a subtle underline of familiarity. Subject: Collaboration Opportunity, the Metropolitan Gala. Ethan, I know it's been a while since we connected, but I'm spearheading the Metropolitan's major charity gala. I need a visionary partner to fund the restoration of the museum's ancient wing. Thornpour Innovations is the perfect fit. I'll follow up with your assistant, but I would love to invite you and Ava for a low-key lunch to discuss. Best Claire D'Angelo. The invitation was a double-edged sword. On one hand, sponsoring the Met Gala was huge PR for Thornpour. On the other, it forced Ava and Ethan to directly confront Claire, who represented their biggest misunderstanding and Bud. Ethan brought the email to Ava, without hesitation or concealment. "This is a setup," Ava stated, holding her teacup steadily. "She doesn't need Thornpour, she needs a performance." "She wants to prove she can still walk into my life," Ethan agreed. "But we're going. We'll take the deal. On our terms." Ava looked at him. "Are you sure? I don't want to revert to being the threatened wife." "You won't be," Ethan said, gripping her hand. "You are my wife, my daughter's mother. You are my unshakable contract. Claire is a client. She will see that the silence ruined me, not you." The showdown lunch. The lunch took place at a high-end midtown restaurant. Claire D'Angelo was the epitome of Polish. Perfectly tailored suit, sleek blonde hair, and a dazzling yet slightly calculated smile. "Ava, so lovely to finally meet you," Claire said, her voice overly warm, but her eyes only paused for a second before shifting to Ethan. "It's great to see Ethan back at events. He completely vanished off the radar after everything." Ethan immediately seized control of the narrative. "My family is my priority, Claire. We are here to discuss the Ancient Wing project, not my personal schedule." Claire launched into the sponsorship pitch, executing it flawlessly. But then, she veered off course. "Of course, Ethan, Ava, you know how these things work," Claire continued, leaning in conspiratorially. "The Met Gala is a huge undertaking. It requires full commitment. The old Ethan understood that. The late nights, the travel, the willingness to jump when the opportunity arose. It's difficult to manage that when you have new responsibilities." It was a subtle, almost imperceptible jab, but the subtext was crystal clear. Your family makes you weak. Your wife is a liability. Ava didn't wait for Ethan to jump in. She smiled warmly, her eyes meeting Claire's with a quiet intensity that surprised even Ethan. "It sounds like you're looking for the old Ethan, Claire," Ava said, her voice calm and conversational. "But that man isn't here anymore. He made a $12 billion mistake by almost letting his life fall apart, and he learned his lesson." She paused, then delivered the perfectly aimed retort. "The man sitting across from you is the new one. He closes deals faster, he takes less risk, and he now knows the actual value of his time. He's exponentially more formidable because he has something to protect." Claire's smile faltered for the first time. "That's an interesting perspective." "It's not perspective, it's the financial truth," Ethan cut in, backing Ava up completely. "We will commit to the full $5 million restoration budget, Claire, on one condition. Ava's consultancy will handle the historical research and curation oversight for the wing's accompanying exhibit. Thornpour's name goes on the wing, and Sterling Art Consultancy's name goes on the exhibit. Take it or leave it." It was an audacious move. It not only solidified Ava's professional standing, but forced Claire to publicly endorse the success of the woman she had tried to sideline. Claire was trapped. The Met needed the money, and Ethan was offering it with an unshakable condition. "Done," Claire said, her voice tight, a flicker of true hatred flashing in her eyes. "I'll draw up the paperwork." As they stood to leave, Claire made one final, desperate attempt. "It's wonderful you're prioritizing family, Ethan, but don't you worry that one day, when she's grown, Iris will see the shadow of the other woman on your story?" Ethan looked at Claire, then back at Ava, his expression completely resolute. He didn't speak to Claire. He spoke directly to Ava. "Our story starts the night Iris was born, Ava. Before that, it was just a prologue of mistakes." He put his hand on Ava's back, a gesture of unwavering support, and guided her out of the restaurant, leaving Claire D'Angelo defeated and alone at the table, the legacy of the mother-in-law. The victory felt immense, but it came with an unexpected cost. A few months later, Eleanor Thorne, the Iron Matriarch, collapsed during a board meeting at Thornpore. She was rushed to Boston General, the very hospital where Iris was born. The diagnosis was severe, a sudden, aggressive illness. Ethan, Ava, and Iris moved back to Boston for the duration. The old NICU hallway was replaced by the hushed tones of the oncology unit. Ethan, who had always viewed his mother as invincible, was shattered. "She can't go yet, Ava," Ethan whispered one night in the hospital cafeteria, his composure finally breaking. "She finally learned how to be a grandmother. She finally learned how to trust me." Ava held him, the roles reversed. "She's not going anywhere, Ethan. She's a fighter." Eleanor, frail but lucid, called them to her bedside one afternoon. "Ethan," she said, her voice thin, "I was a good CEO, but a terrible mother. I spent my life protecting the Thornpore name, and I nearly destroyed the Thorne family." She looked at Ava. "Ava, thank you for teaching him what I couldn't. Love isn't a line item in a balance sheet. It's the only asset that truly appreciates." Eleanor then handed Ethan a single, thick, signed document. It was her will. "I've signed over my entire controlling interest in Thornpore to Iris," she stated. "Not for her to run it, but for you. You are now the majority shareholder. No board, no Marcus Lyle can ever challenge your schedule again. Your family is secure." "Mother, you don't have to do this," Ethan choked out. "Yes, I do," she interrupted, a ghost of her old smile appearing. "It's my final deal, Ethan. I sold the company to buy back my son." Eleanor Thorne passed away 3 days later, surrounded by her family. Her final act was not about business strategy, but about securing the unscheduled life her son had finally found. The legacy of Eleanor Thorne was not the billions she controlled, but the priceless realization she gave her son. Control means nothing without connection. Epilogue. The irrevocable deal. 2 years later, Ethan Thorne was still the CEO of Thornpore Innovations. But he wasn't running the company. He was leading it. He mandated flexible hours, paternity leave, and instituted a 4:30 p.m. rule across the firm, encouraging employees to prioritize life outside the office. His results never faltered, proving that balance led to better performance. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Ethan and Ava sat by the Charles River. Iris, now running and laughing, chased a flock of pigeons. "She really is our little rainbow," Ava whispered, leaning into Ethan. Ethan nodded. "She taught me that life isn't about closing a deal. It's about making space for the things you can't schedule." He took her hand, the wedding ring a bright line against his tanned skin. "You know, after all the contracts, the trusts, the deals, Iris is still the only document I'm truly afraid of breaching." Ava laughed, a clear, beautiful sound that echoed the very first laugh he had heard in that dark hospital room. "Well, Mr. CEO," she said, squeezing his hand, "that is one contract I know you'll keep forever." What part of Eleanor's final act shocked you the most? Did she redeem herself? Let us know your thoughts on her legacy and what you think is next for the Thorne family.